everybody. Welcome into the podcast, Parts Counter Gurus. Hey, Keith, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Jay?
It's Keith right there. Y'all see him? Oh, he's over there. Can you see him? I'm here. I'm Jay.
Do the elevator thing? It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
You got to stand up to do it.
That's it, man. I can't. Oh, oof. How's it going? I'm feeling kind of campy.
Yeah. So I love that you dressed for the occasion.
Hey, look.
Talking about RVs today on the podcast, and you decided to show up in your Christmas vacation.
Hey, it's just good to be here, Clark. Hey.
And we will actually get into a little bit of the stinky slinky if we need to. You know,
yeah, the pipe, the dreaded pipe in the sewer, and the storm drain.
We can go there.
Yeah.
That by the way, you should never do that. That's
that's not a good thing to do. They have dump sites for that, people.
Right.
So what's on the agenda? What do you got this morning for us, man?
Man. Well, I'll tell you this, that almost every day that has gone by since our last podcast, I've been sitting here reading the news, and it's like there's too much to talk about. I mean, it's we could do a podcast
just on the news. Yeah. So, maybe we should do that. We'll just talk, news of the world one day, and pick. We'll talk financial. We'll talk, what's going on in some of these third world countries with disease, and just get caught up. Get the world caught up on everything, and maybe we can solve some problems.
Well, we typically do solve the world's problems here on the podcast.
That's our goal, man. Yeah, that's what we do.
I mean, we could focus on just kind of the automotive industry and still have hours of just in everything that's happened in the past week or two.
Just automotive alone. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've found some interesting things that have happened this week too, but so you have some news, huh? You want to get into some news already? Live from PartsCounterGuru.com.
Funny you should ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. There we go. I'm stepping on again. What's our website?
www.partscountergurus.com.
So, you learned a new word last week, new term, and fresh, hot on the heels of that, barn finds. Remember barn finds?
Barn finds, yeah.
Guy had the car. He sealed it up and put a wall around it. All right.
Yeah.
So
did you find something in the barn?
Here's another one. 1968 barn find, Ford Mustang Shelby GT 500, frozen in time.
What year was that again?
1968.
Oh, lovely year.
Shelby GT 500, discovered in a barn in Texas, and still looks like that's where it's kept. So I'm looking at pictures here. Collector bought it. He had to do a lot of restoration work. Oh, man. It's got the Cobra over-the-air intake. The metal Cobra cover.
Wow. What
wood steering wheel.
Find.
Wow.
Was it a one owner? Did they indicate that at all?
Let's see. The Raven Black 2-door is one of just 1,020 GT 500 fastbacks built that year, which I guess would be 1968.
Yeah.
But isn't factory spec condition. The automatic transmission it came with was swapped for a 4-speed manual at some point, and it's model correct.
Wow.
428, 360 horsepower Interceptor V8 with a Holley 4-barrel carburetor is not being advertised as its numbers matching engine.
Man, you just made me want to buy a ticket to Texas and go down there and check this thing out myself. That sounds beautiful.
But usually when you see that kind of modification, it's been passed around quite a bit. So I don't have a direct answer for you on that, but my guess is it's not a one owner.
Yeah. Well, I never told you about my little barn find.
No, tell me.
I actually have a picture of it somewhere. I'll try to find it. And this is from a previous time in my life. It was a 1969 Pontiac Firebird convertible. Everything stock, factory original. My ex-brother-in-law found it, and it was a barn find. And it was actually just all covered up in a barn in Tennessee. Yeah, it was found in Tennessee, man. Drove that thing for a while. It was beautiful. It was a factory color. It was like this weird, like
what color?
Like a mint green.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And had the factory rims and So we didn't do anything to it other than just restore it to its back to its factory original. Didn't mess with the dash, with the radio or anything. What we actually did though is we installed some custom really good speakers in the doors, and put an amp and preamp in the trunk, mounted in the trunk, and ran a lead through the trunk through the center console. You know, when you opened up the center console, you had a 1/8" jack. You plugged in, whether it was a portable.
It's a modern day.
Yeah. You just plugged in your.
A lot of cars come with that now.
Now they do, but that was back then. This was late '80s, early '90s when we owned this.
Well, you know who Chip Foose is, right?
Yeah.
You've heard me talk.
Oh,
okay,
Chip
so
Foose,
so I, I've seen him and heard him comment many times. Chip Foose, who is for those of you that don't know, he's an automotive designer. So he's a contractor or a consultant. He has worked directly, I think, for some of the manufacturers, but most of the time now they'll consult out to him. I think his dad worked in the industry. He did the Prowler.
Yeah.
The was it Dodge or Chrysler?
Yeah.
Whatever, however they badged it.
Didn't they? Was it Plymouth Prowler? It may have.
It might have been the
Plymouth.
And then I think he did. Although I'm not positive on this, but when Ford brought back the Thunderbird, everybody was like, "That looks like he." And I saw him do some. I think it was on a home repair show that Adam Carolla did, where he had an Aston Martin, and he just kind of a side part of the show, and took it to Chip and let him do a couple things. As he said, he breathed on it a little bit. Well, Aston Martin later just started doing that to their newer models.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That guy
just changed a little bit of the body.
Yeah, that guy has had such an impact on the industry. Such an innovator, man, when it comes to some of the stuff that he's doing. I like Chip. He's fun to watch, man. So
he is. So he says that one of the fastest ways to date a car is to go mess with the tech.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like to change out the head units and all that.
Sure.
And it's almost like what you were saying, where you said you didn't really want to mess with a lot of the console.
Mm-hmm.
You almost have to make it like you just leave it old intentionally. You go with that vintage retro sort of classic design.
Absolutely.
Because whatever you put in it that's current today, next year is going to be obsolete.
Yeah.
Right?
That's just like anything in our modern day technology. I mean, that's just the price that we pay for technology these days. Hey, so I got a little piece of news too that I found it's very appropriate for this morning. This is actually just in, and you may have already heard about this, and most of our listeners will probably find out about it on the national news. This is a pretty big deal. The headline is "Vintage Porsche Collection Damaged in Fatal North Carolina Gas Explosion." Yeah, this is just in. It says the Ingram collection, which has been praised as one of the largest collections of vintage Porsches in the world, was being stored in a warehouse connected to the building that exploded in Durham this morning. Aerial footage shows the collection sustained severe damage. That's terrible. That's a big deal, man. So, and that was the Ingram collection. So anybody interested in going
I'm sure
to check
that's
that
the
out.
Ingram family.
Yeah. That'll be. I'm sure that'll be on your major news networks tonight. So keep your eye on that. That's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, terrible on a number of levels.
Did they know it was next to a? Well, I guess you have gas. I don't know much about this gas leak at this point.
Well, I'm looking at the building and the footage. I mean,
most businesses have.
I mean, it was next to a. No, it was. I mean, it's just one of those things where the building has gas. It's plumbed for gas, man, natural gas, and there's been a lot of that lately. The natural gas explosions. Have you noticed that, man? There's been some weird occurrences happening. I'm sure you've heard about it. There was like 28 major huge telephone poles, power lines that just fell over recently by the Museum of Flight in Seattle, downtown Seattle. Did you see that?
No, I heard about it, but
They're
I didn't
still,
see pictures.
Seattle is still trying to figure out, the power company is still trying to figure out what the heck happened, because it was not a major wind severe storm or anything. One of the poles just snapped, and then it was a chain reaction. They all came over, and they have footage of the couple that were driving. It looked like maybe a Ford Escape, or what's the other Ford SUV? Edge, Ford Edge.
Yeah.
And the pole came in and crashed right through the roof and between the couple, and they sustained minor injuries and survived. If you look
straight out of the movies.
Oh, I mean, that's one of those deals where, you hear something go by your head, and then you find out later that it was a bullet, and you go,
right.
I was in the right place at the right time there.
Yeah.
So anyway, something was on their side. I'll say that much, man.
So let's might turn this into a Chrysler theme.
Have I derailed you?
No, until we get to the RVs. I don't know of any good Chrysler RVs, but
there are none.
So
well, I take that back. The Sprinter van, when Dodge did the Sprinter, but that's a Mercedes, so it is what it is.
Mercedes.
Yeah. So. Always riding on the coattails of somebody else. They are.
You know about this? Tesla deal they made? It's a day that ends in Y. On the podcast, we got to talk about Tesla, right? Mm-hmm. The European emissions, the Tesla deal that went down just recently. Have you heard about this?
I think so. I actually just posted something up on our. Does it have to do with the over-the-road haulers, the autonomous EV road haulers?
No.
Okay.
So this is what I know, and some of this is smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. I think to most people, but so there's a miles per gallon regulatory legislation that's about to take place, or has already been. It's been passed, but it's set for, it looks like 2020, the year 2020,
which is right around the corner.
90%, right around the corner. 95% of an automaker's new cars sold in the EU have to meet this target, with the remaining 5% falling under the law in 2021. So by 2021, 100% of their fleet has to have. Let's see, and it looks like they're monitoring CO2 emissions. And they're monitoring miles per gallon.
Wow.
Now, I'm looking for the specifics of the MPG. I remember when I read it the first time. Here we go. Beginning next year, new rules begin to phase in that require a car maker's fleet-wide emissions to average higher than 95 grams of CO2. Figure that works out to roughly 57 miles per gallon for gasoline vehicles, or 76 miles per gallon for diesel-powered vehicles.
Now, this is miles, not kilometers.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they did the kind of...
They did the math. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
The conversion.
Gotcha. Metric to standard math for us.
Okay,
right?
good.
So,
good.
57 miles...
Wow.
Now, okay, so let's take a step back here. So, fleet vehicles.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's everything.
Yeah.
That's everything
they make, yes.
Okay, so...
This is huge.
If you make a Fiat 500 little car, right, and it gets 55, 60 miles to the gallon,
right?
Let's just go with 60. But then you've got a truck that gets 18. They're going to add, that's fleet average. So they look at how many of the 500s you make or sell,
right,
and how many of that truck you make and sell, and then they just average the whole thing out based on those numbers, right?
Right.
So here's the. So before we get into how Tesla got involved with this, this is insane. Like, you are not going to be able to make reliable vehicles that get 57 miles to the gallon on an internal combustion engine.
Not that quickly. I think down the road with technology, it's going to take years. But they can get there. You can't expect somebody on a dime to make that change and for it to be effective, because the consumer is going to end up suffering here.
And it really, that's exactly where I'm going with this. First of all, whoever passed these laws, and I understand that this is probably environmentally based.
Yeah.
you're going to put companies out of business, and then you're not going to have transportation. And what kind of drugs are you people in the EU doing that are writing this legislation? Like, I'm all for not barfing out pollutants into the environment, but how about a little common sense when it comes to, like, do these guys just pick a number and go, well, let's go for 150 and make them do it in 2 years? I mean, there are limits to engineering right now, and we can't, like, the technology does not exist.
Well, that goes back to what the debacle, a few years ago with Volkswagen, right? They were caught with their hand in the cookie jar.
Laws were passed, and instead of spending the massive amounts of R&D, and maybe they just couldn't, they just hacked the system.
They just tweaked the OBD, man. Hey, speaking of OBD, you guys, this is what we were talking about. We had podcast 7 and 8. Go back and watch it. How are they able to achieve this? How are they going to be able to get this passed? This is how it works, guys. OBD. And you know what? This is something. If they're going to do this, part of that technology, see, that's why they're in the back room working on the OBD3 technology that we've already talked about as well. People, go back and listen to podcast 7 and 8 where we really get into the OBD. And that's how, this is what OBD, this is the impact of OBD. This is how they're able to do this and how they're able to monitor this. And we talked about getting into the system and certain there's a reason why certain systems on fleets of vehicles are proprietary, so that they can adjust those and tweak those systems how they want them to get the maximum amount out of it, or for it to tell you something that's really not true. Am I right?
In the case of Volkswagen.
Absolutely. Yes, it can be done. Yes.
Yeah, that's a case in point example of telling you something that's not true, right? Because they would just drive it through the emissions test places, and they'd plug in and it'd give them false data.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how does Tesla fit into this? So and this is a lot of moving shells around on the table as far as I'm concerned, because if your goal is truly to regulate emissions, this doesn't do that. It's all just semantics. So last weekend, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, FCA, struck a deal with Tesla. And this is the part that's gray to me, but somehow they're counting Tesla's vehicles as part of their fleet in exchange for truckloads of cash, right? So Tesla has been all over the news lately because they're trying to basically move from an investor-funded business to a self-sustaining business, and they're having to watch their margins a lot more closely. And so this gives Tesla a big shot in the arm in terms of lots of cash coming in, and really not doing much for it in the sense that they're not having to produce tangible goods, right? They're taking their existing vehicles and they've licensed to Fiat Chrysler to count those as fleet vehicles. Right. In the European Union, okay?
Right.
So Tesla, it's a zero emissions vehicle, so it's kind of strongly offsetting all of those gasoline engines in the other direction. I mean, it's 100% of 100%, so to speak, right? I mean, they are zero emissions, I guess, but that's sort of short logic, because if you look at where that electricity comes from, it's not always zero emissions, but that's another podcast.
Right, right.
So this is a big deal.
It's
a big deal because Tesla gets a ton of money, and it keeps Fiat out of. Honestly, if I were Chrysler, I would almost wish these auto manufacturers would just stop selling cars in Europe and just go, you know what, y'all, just when you come to some common sense, then we'll talk. But this is not realistic. Well, so figure it out. I guess y'all are riding bicycles in the rain in the wintertime. Good luck.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or catch a cab. One of the two. They have great public transportation systems over in Europe. So
okay.
Hey, just jump on the bus.
Right? Yeah.
Get on the train. Leave the cars to us. As
that should be our slogan.
Yeah. Leave the cars to us. But I mean, in England, they think that we're everything's excessive for Americans anyway. I mean, they call us, our vehicles are called yank tanks. You know, that's what they call them.
Yeah. So, we love them, man.
Yeah.
Well, but we're going to get into some Yank tanks in a few minutes.
Right. So here I am, man. I'm an American. I lived in Europe, at one time, and I drove on I was in England for about 3 years, and I drove on those roads, and there's a reason why they built the Mini. You need something that small to be able to drive on those roads.
Yeah.
And it was so funny when you would see, a fellow soldier driving back and forth from the base. You'd see this big, huge, like Buick LeSabre coming down a track road, man, and it's just the funniest thing. But anyway, we do go we do go large as an American.
Well, look, I mean, if when you live in one of those smaller countries, you got to drive a smaller car, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Everything's small. Yeah, tiny home, tiny. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. Okay, that was my American attempt at American humor there. So, I stumbled on. I've got just a couple more here. I stumbled on something that I'm going to recommend that you check out.
Okay.
And not just you, but our listeners and our viewers too. Actually, before we get to that, let me just take a minute here. I'm going to try to do this on my own, Jay, without training wheels.
Okay.
If you are no pressure. If you're watching the podcast right now, thank you. If you have not subscribed to it on YouTube, please go do that.
Yeah.
If you are watching the podcast, please also know that there is an audio only version of the podcast, and you can find that on all the usual outlets: iTunes, Apple, on the Google side, on the Android side, Stitcher, all of them, right?
Yep.
So we're there. Go to our website at partscountergurus.com and look for a podcast links tab. It's along the top. I'm probably put a little graphic up there.
Yep.
But podcast links, and then you just pick the one you want, right? You can, like Jay's pointing right there. If you want the video version, you can do that. You can do that on iTunes as well. We would ask you to subscribe to the YouTube side because it helps us out. But then if you want to listen to it, if you're driving in your car and, audio is your only option, thanks for that. And just know that you can subscribe. Again, website, partscountergurus.com.
Yes.
So
very good. Very good.
Thanks. There's still time left in the podcast for me to screw something up, though. So I stumbled across a Netflix documentary. It's just one episode. It's about an hour long, a little over an hour. And I don't remember. I was on a forum somewhere, and somebody said, "Hey, I just finished watching this. It's fantastic." It's called Steve Jobs: The Missing Interview. And basically, Steve Jobs didn't give a lot of interviews. So there's all kinds of footage of him doing Apple's big events and, their press releases and that sort of stuff. But for him to sit down with a journalist and do an interview, much less like something that was filmed, that didn't happen very often. So they thought this was lost. I don't want to give any spoilers out, but they found it. It's from the mid-'90s. Mm-hmm. It was after he was ousted at Apple the first time,
right.
And he was running a software company called Next, but right before he goes back to taking over Apple.
Right.
And here's what's fascinating about it. So we've talked a lot about Ford. We've talked a lot about Apple. We've talked about Apple's direction being kind of questionable. We've talked about how Ford seems to, for whatever reason, be dialed in right now to just doing the right things.
Mm-hmm.
And in this Netflix episode, he specifically goes into why companies lose their path, what they're focused on, what are the wrong things to be focused on, what they usually get focused on that's the wrong thing, and how he sees that differently. And that was kind of his whole kind of mantra, and basically lays out kind of what he's going to do when he goes back to Apple, although they didn't know at the time he was going back. And what's very interesting about this is that it applies to kind of what's going on today, not only with Apple, because if you listen to his words from back then, it's clear that Apple's lost their way. But then if you look at companies like Ford, like he's specifically talking about things that Ford is doing right now and they're doing right. And he doesn't say Ford, it's just corporate vision.
Corporate vision, gotcha. Yeah.
Or that maybe Chrysler is not doing and they're struggling, right? Or Fiat Chrysler. So if you have time, if you have Netflix, it's called Steve Jobs. I think it's called The Lost Interview. If you just search for Steve Jobs on Netflix, you'll find it.
Yeah, I will definitely go there myself. I'm a big, huge Jobs fan. So it's a shame we lost him, man. It really is.
Yeah. You lost him too soon.
Yeah, we did. We did.
So Ford did a recall this week. This is, let me see if I can do this from memory. So it has to do with the electrical system, the wiring specifically going into vehicles that have engine block heaters. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about this, and I think I know what you're going to say, Jay, but some of these were previously recalled.
Right.
And then they recalled them again, which on the surface kind of makes you look bad because people will go, well, wait, do you not know what you were doing that you couldn't get it right the first time?
That's exactly what it is.
But apparently, during the inspection process that happened during the first recall, the procedure that Ford mandated caused the potential for damage. So they're recalling them again. So here's the deal. So Ford, this has been in a lot of news sources, but roughly about 650,000 F-150 Super Duty trucks for fire concerns. It has to do with the wiring going into the engine block heater because it can cause a short and could cause anything up to and including a fire, right? So the first recall was in December. But the thing that surprises me is I didn't realize that there were 650,000 vehicles with engine block, F-150s with engine block heaters in them sold in any model year. Or no, actually, this is several model years.
Well, I'm not surprised by that just because of their, that's a small amount in comparison to what they actually sell annually, right?
2015 to 2019. Yeah, it is, but
yeah,
I mean that's a lot of trucks, man.
Well, there's a lot of
F-150s.
Well, there's a lot of trucks being sold up in Canada, and I mean that.
It's the northern states is where you would expect them to have the engine block heaters.
Absolutely, and let's don't forget about Alaska, and there's a lot of places up there, and again too, within the numbers that they're saying being sold, how much of this is, sold to say, government.
Well, that could be, yeah.
I'm not really surprised that there's that many, but that's a big deal.
When I said I think I know what you're going to say, so it looks to me like Ford is focusing on the quality and the outcome being a good one and not on sort of image. I mean, they're doing it right regardless, right?
That's a company that I would work for.
And this is exactly the kind of stuff that Steve Jobs goes into in that interview, and he talks about understanding consumer satisfaction and giving them things that are almost life altering, right? That the quality is so good that it's and the execution of those ideas is superb. So I mean, this is not the first time that we have talked on this podcast about Ford,
how they handle their proactive. Yeah. They're being proactive. They're looking after their loyal customers and trying to gain more customers. And how you do that, man, is you don't just sweep something under the rug and meet in the back room about it and to save dollars.
Right.
You fully understand that what Ford is doing has a lot to do with the integrity of that company. We talked about it. You were talking about it in a previous podcast. You questioned me, do you think it's a good idea that Ford issued a recall on a vehicle that was just now coming out? And I said, absolutely I do. It proves to me as a consumer that that's who I want to deal with. That's where I want to spend my dollars because they're going to take care of my investment.
So the other side of that coin is almost letting... We've talked about this, letting accountants run, influence the corporate direction, right?
Yeah.
And I talked about Apple, and I kind of called them out for that, sort of pandering to the revenue that comes in, the Chuck Berry mailbox money, right?
Yeah,
right. Like
yeah.
I literally went into that. So this is something else that Jobs gets into on that Netflix episode, and he talks about how they used IBM as an example a lot, or he did, but sort of letting the financial people take control of the direction, and he gave some examples that happened in Apple's history of when they misstepped. But this is something that Ford kind of says, at least on the surface, appears to me they're going, look, we're going to do the right thing here.
Yeah,
we're not going to necessarily over focus on immediate consumer backlash or shareholder backlash or investor backlash. We're playing the long game here. That truck's going to work. 5 years from now, it's not going to have an engine block heater short and blow up.
Right. This is great. I mean, Ford had an issue years ago with similar type situation, except for it was I think there was a master cylinder brake switch. That would,
I remember
even
that.
with the key off, it would cause a massive fire under the hood, and people's houses were catching on fire after they get in the garage. Was that the Exploder or the?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But you're okay, so let's beat up on before we get into this RV thing, let's beat up on Chrysler just a little bit.
But before we go there on Chrysler, can I just bring something up to our listeners? We just talked about a recall.
The senator from the state of Washington has the floor.
Yep. Thank you, man. So it is your right as a consumer to understand what is going on with a purchase that you have made. Bottom line. That's why you have, Better Business Bureau out there and all those sorts of things. But when it comes to automobiles or vehicles in general, there are recalls, safety recalls that are mandatory, and they have to be made public. The easiest way to find those is with your vehicle identification number or your VIN number, which we talk about on our website. We talk about it in our podcast of how necessary your VIN number is. Take a picture of your VIN number, keep it in your phone, or just put it in your notes in your phone. That way you've always got it on you. However,
there are at least 2 specific articles on the website that go into VINs
and how important
and where to
they
find
are.
them and how to use them.
And how important they are. But, as a consumer, if you don't already know this, all you have to do is go to their website. It's nhtsa.gov, and you can click on the recall tab. And right there, you just input your vehicle information, and it'll give you every recall for your vehicle. I just actually did it this morning for mine just to see what was out there, and unfortunately, there is a recall that was issued on mine just recently that I need to go check, and it's the components fuel propulsion system. Bad sending unit on fuel pump assembly. This caused the gas lights to stop working inside the vehicle while driving. Here's the information that they give you, which is fantastic because you want to know these things. What it affects, but they're going to give you how many crashes are related to the recall, how many fires are related to the recall, how many injuries, how many deaths, those sorts of things. All those things are important because they have to let the public know what the severity of that is. So just a food for thought, just a kind of an FYI, nhtsa.gov.
And that's National Highway Transportation Safety Administration.
That is correct. And
if you want to actually put all that in and Google it, go.
We'll put up a
more power to you.
We'll put a link on our website,
sure.
mentioned on the podcast.
Yeah. Now, this vehicle that you looked up. Which one was it?
It was the Cooper.
So it was your Mini. Okay, yeah. So this was a small problem then.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
It was a mini issue, so to speak.
I got a sticker from my last visit, man, that I had. Yes, it is a mini issue. I got a sticker.
Oh, did they give you a little sticker?
I got a little sticker. And you know what it says on this little sticker? It says actual size. So.
All right.
Mini is the only.
The soundboard's getting a workout
Mini is
today.
Mini is the only vehicle that, when you look in the passenger side view mirror, where it says objects in mirror may appear smaller than they actually are. Or is that what it says?
Yeah, small. Yeah, objects in mirror may be smaller than they appear, something like that.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, that's always the case with a Mini Cooper in your side view mirror. Just saying. So, I love my car, man. It's a little go-kart.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, we've owned one.
It's fun to drive, man. Yeah. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for the world, man.
So, and it's equally as fun to sort of make small jokes about, whatever. But
yeah.
So okay, so Chrysler. So we talked at length on one of our previous podcasts about several different times, I think, sort of some steps Chrysler can take to sort of improve their sales. Mm-hmm. And public image. And, I think the Hellcat, we talked a little bit about the transmissions dropping out, and then we talked about some potential co-branding, kind of stuff. All right, so news headline here. Jeep just released 6 Easter Safari truck concepts. So apparently they do these kind of concept Jeeps every year.
Is there a Commando in there?
Let's see here. So
I know the Gladiator is
the Gladiator's in there.
Yeah.
There's 6 of them. They used an Apple term, insanely cool Jeep trucks here.
Yeah.
So here they are. Okay. So the Gladiator Gravity, and it's a rock climber. It's got kind of an open it looks like one of those side by sides. It's got the like tubular door cages, and then it's got a small pickup bed in the back. The flat bill, which is similar, and they show a couple dirt bikes in the small. It looks like it's about a 3.5 foot bed with a tailgate, and then it's a regular Jeep from the bed forward. So you've got the canvas removable top with the hard doors. Mm-hmm. Then we have the M715 5-quarter. Now, this looks like the old Jeep pickup truck. Do you remember those? It's
I do.
2-seater bench seat in the front.
Yeah, cool trucks, man. I had a friend of mine who had one. That thing was just, it was old and just beat up, but it still ran like a champ.
The 5-quarter name is a historical nod to the classic Jeep trucks that were 1 1/4 tons or 5-quarter tons.
Yeah.
There you
go.
Wow. It's pretty gnarly looking.
So are they going all gasoline engines, or are they going to be some diesels in these things? Do they say?
I don't see how. I don't. Well, they're concepts. So
okay. Well, the reason why I asked that is because with Fiat, they Fiat Iveco. Iveco is a huge heavy duty diesel or marine diesel manufacturer. That's Fiat, basically, Fiat Iveco. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I had read somewhere where they were going to be putting some of these diesel engines into some of their vehicles. That might be just the European market only. I don't know, but
it would typically it helps with fuel economy, gas mileage, but where it so this is a tough spot for FCA Fiat Chrysler, because if you do that, you win on the fuel economy side in terms of emissions regulations, but it drives the sale price of the vehicle up. The cost to manufacture it is more expensive because the diesel engine components are more expensive.
Yeah.
All right, so 2 more here. So the Jeep J6 looks like a Wrangler Rubicon and turned it into a 2-door Jeep truck. So this kind of looks like a Wrangler on the front with a 4-foot pickup bed in the back and a light bar in between.
Yeah, that's very cool.
It is cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're kind of bringing back some of the old model,
retro.
Old model and the names even. I mean, the J6s. That's all old stuff, man. It was something that's not been in production for decades.
Well, Toyota's done it, right? So it worked for them. Why not?
Yeah.
And it's not a bad idea if they actually put any of these into production.
Yeah. Can I? What do you got? Yeah, no, go ahead. You got more news on that?
Well, I got one more on this Jeep line, but
okay.
But it's gonna. This one is actually the one that drew me into the article because it's an RV theme, but I digress.
No, you go ahead, because mine's not even going to be anything to do with that. I just have a gripe that I wanted to mention.
I think we need to stop and take care of this.
Do you want to hear this gripe that I have?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, man. I heard this story the other day, man, on the news. And you know, we've talked about this. People are so quick to just whine about anything, you know. And, you know, it's like handing out the trophies, man, for not winning. You know,
participation
trophies, man. You're not learning anything by getting a participation trophy. I'm sorry, that's just my thoughts on that.
Oh, it's not true, Jay. I learned that if I show up, I get a trophy.
You get rewarded? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, here's the deal. Okay, so you're obviously very familiar with Amazon. I mean, they are what they are. And
wait, who?
You know, Amazon.
Is this like a safari company?
Yeah, that's it.
In South America that will do, like, is it like a travel agency?
Yeah, that's it.
What are we?
Yeah, that's it. They're everything. Seriously, they are. I mean, everything you name, that's what they are. So, you know, they came out with these, you know, these grocery stores. What do they call them? Like Amazon Go, or what is it? You know what I'm talking about? The grocery stores you go into? And
this is a self-service model.
Self-service model, correct.
You pick your stuff up, you walk out the door, there is no cashier.
Yeah, you have this app on your phone, and it you know, it does it through Apple Pay or whatever.
I mean, allegedly, I don't know what you're talking about, but if I did, this would be.
But if you did, you did, right. Okay. So I saw this story the other day that they're actually, you know, and again, I'm not calling any one individual or a group of individuals out, but what I want to point out is this. So this is a great concept for people who are tech savvy and they want to use this technology to do it, and they don't want to have to carry cash on them. But now you have people that don't want a credit card, that only want to spend cash, that are killing the whole experience for people that don't want to carry cash. So they're having to change the whole model because now people want to, you know, they feel like they're being discriminated against because they don't have a credit card or they don't have a phone with the Apple Pay.
So once again, it sounds like we're the least common denominator ruins it for everybody.
That's
right?
my point. My point is this: is that, you know, sometimes, you know, there are things. Just go to the other grocery store that takes cash.
Right.
You know, why ruin it for me or anybody else? This is a technology, and it's specific to that. That's just like, you know, look, I'm not mad at Porsche because I can't afford a $150,000 automobile. Am I going to go whine to Porsche and say, you know what, you should make that thing $30,000 so I can afford it?
So here is my life. So I try to not impose my will on others, but this is going to be one of those times when I'm going to ask everyone to adopt this model.
Yeah.
In their life. So this is my stance on the issues, Jay. This is my stance. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Just leave me alone. Okay? That's my stance.
Right.
Like, you go, if you want to go do whatever it is you want to go do,
right,
and it doesn't work out well for you, you're not allowed to get mad at the company that made the cup of hot coffee that you decided to pour on your head and sue them because coffee is hot.
Right.
Okay? If you don't believe in credit cards, okay. But I think the bigger issue is it's a debt thing.
It is a debt thing. And the whole point.
And I get that. Well, then they make check cards or things that are tied straight into your checking account that don't have a line of credit tied to them.
You just put it on your phone, man. And then there's a complaint where I can't afford a phone. Well,
okay, well, you can get it. If you have a bank account, you can get a check card. And if you don't have a bank, so this is okay. But you can't make the rest of the world cater to you if you're in the minority. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I get that. Like, I'm not asking anybody to change on my behalf. That's the last thing I want.
Right.
Okay? I'll give you a great example. Lottery. Tennessee got the lottery 10 or 15 years ago.
Right.
Okay? Well, some people, it was real heated. Some people wanted it. Some people didn't.
I remember that.
Here's where I stand on the issues. If I got to come into that gas station and pay for a cup of coffee or a Gatorade or a bottle of water, I just want to pay for my stuff and get out of there. Now, here's where I get rubbed, is when you get a guy in front of me in line that's going to buy a lottery ticket, stand there at the counter and scratch it off, win something, turn around, go back, get another win, scratch it. And I'm standing here like, man, I'm just trying to pay for a cup of coffee and get on with my day, right? Put him in his own line. But make a lottery, whatever. But I would never expect the people behind me to wait on me to be that selfish. Same thing behind the wheel of an automobile, right? Like, that's where I stand on the issues, okay? If it's great, if you don't want to carry credit cards, don't carry credit cards. But stop trying to change the model of a business to suit your personal needs. Just don't buy from them.
Right. That's it.
Right? Let the market decide.
That's what I'm saying. And the bottom line is because of this particular issue that was brought up, Amazon's just going to change the model and make it work, I guess. So
if you don't like wine, or you don't agree with that, or it's against your religion, don't buy it.
Right.
But stop trying to impose your will on other people.
Right. I think
that's the part. Like, just leave me alone, man. Let me do what I want to do.
This is how people are looking at the whole situation, like this, with blinders on, and they're not even taking into consideration what the concept is all about. It's about convenience. It's about not having to deal with that person behind the counter. It's about just going in, getting your stuff, and getting out of there. Now, you're going to hold me up because you want to pay cash. So now they're going to have to add cash registers and cashiers and whatever, man. I mean, it just...
And hours of my life have now gone to some worthless cause of, some lawyer somewhere having to add lines
It's not some sort of elite club, this thing. I mean, honestly, if you look at the whole concept of it, they're catering to the majority of people out there that have a cell phone and an app and a credit card and means to pay for it electronically.
This is going on right now in the automotive industry. And you've heard, I said this before, that with Tesla, with these cutting edge, we've got assisted driving and automated driving and these EVs right now. Yeah. You can just stomp on the gas pedal and, I mean, you're just catapulted to 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds, and that's going to change because somebody is going to ruin it. So last week we had some research institution going out on the highway or on some like closed test course, putting stickers down on the pavement that fooled the Tesla into... They were basically able to take the car and force it into oncoming traffic by putting stickers down on the road that made the Tesla think that those were lane markers. Right. Well, don't do that. Don't be an idiot. Right? Like, why do we need that? Now people know that they can go cause an accident by putting stickers down in the middle of a highway.
Right. Yeah.
See, you're going to ruin it for everybody. I mean, that's just the lowest common denominator, right?
Yep. That's it, man. That's my gripe. I'm sorry. I had to bring that up because I was excited about this thing because I was hoping that we would get one close to us. And I mean, I'm sorry, man. I think it's great for me because I'm one of those people that doesn't want to stand behind somebody running through their change purse, picking out exact change. I'm sorry.
Yep.
It wastes my time. Okay. Anyway.
So this is perfect because this is exactly why I like to go camping.
Oh,
I go camping and I'm gonna let you all in on a little secret here. Okay. There are the ratio of self-sufficient people and people that are not able to be self-sufficient out in the wilderness is much better than it is in the pavement in the concrete jungle. Let me translate that.
Yes.
There are fewer. I'm not saying they don't exist, but there are fewer idiots out there in the wilderness. And the reason for that is pretty simple. They'll come out for a day or two, but they usually can't survive for more than that on their own. Right. If they're more than, a tank of gas away from a grocery store, so I love sort of the serenity of getting out and getting away and the beauty of all the sort of different places and and terrain and just scenery that we have here in the United States, and the vast differences between states and all of that.
It's a beautiful country. It's a beautiful country.
It is. I was drawn to this Jeep article because one of these 6 prototypes is called, or concept vehicles, I should say, it's called the Jeep Way Out.
Oh, wow.
And it's a Gladiator concept pickup truck with an overhead rooftop tent. So basically what they did is they took a 4-door Jeep, they put that 4-foot, 3.5-foot pickup bed on the back, then they put a rail system with racks, right? So think of like a construction truck where you see these guys with pickup trucks and they have the ladder racks.
Yeah.
Right? And then they just put a tent on top of it. So it's rooftop camping. Now, this is something I've been wanting to do a video segment on for a while because it's there's a lot of reasons if you tent camp to do this versus a tent on the ground.
Yeah.
But this Jeep Way Out, rooftop tent, 270-degree awning, and an LED area lighting. Custom bed rack not only supports the rooftop tent, but also has an integrated ladder to access the tent. Okay.
That's awesome.
And then, of course, you're sitting on a Jeep, so you can go out in the wilderness somewhere and kind of make your own campsite.
Well, VW's gotten back into the game as well. Are you going to talk about VWs?
Yeah. So we've kicked around this RV thing for a while, Jay and I have, and I kind of grew up doing this, and I've got a pretty fair amount of experience in it. And we just thought, well, let's just talk about it on a podcast. So
now there's an RV, Clark.
Hence Jay's headwear attire. And if you're thinking about an RV or tent camping, or you're thinking about just camping in general, and it's a growing industry in the United States. I thought we might offer you some points to consider before making any sort of major purchase, right? So
right on.
There's a category of RVs that Volkswagen has been famous for in the past, and they're getting back into.
Yeah.
We're going to go into a couple of the categories here, but let's start this by saying it would be best for you to think about why you want to do it.
Right.
And let me kind of explain what I mean by that. So people camp for different reasons. And some of us, like me, want to get out as far away from civilization as you can, and we like that. To some people, the thought of no air conditioning or the lack of a full-size bathroom or shower or a full-size fridge is not a comfortable thought, right? So, and there are RVs that will accommodate that. So you can experience anything that you want to in the way that you want to experience it with the right RV.
That's right.
And here, so as I was thinking about this, I thought there's really about 3 different types of RV personalities here, right? And so try to put yourself into one of these categories, and that will help you sort of focus on a direction to go when thinking about what you want to buy. So here's the first group is kind of the weekend tent campers, okay?
Right. Okay.
So these are people that, they're going to go out maybe with the family or with just the kids on a weekend, maybe camp for a day or two just to sort of get out and have the experience of sleeping somewhere other than in your bedroom, right? Usually you're going to do that. It's only going to be in warm weather seasons. Usually maybe just summertime or late spring, early fall. And, weather, rain, you got to think about that, right? So tents have gotten pretty good now that they're most of them are pretty waterproof, but, you're kind of stuck in that tent or in the car if it's bad weather. So that group sort of just does it very infrequently. You've got a tent in your garage and you may pull it out a couple times a year.
Yeah,
okay?
we have a tent. We have a good sized tent. That's what we use. We're
now that is the perfect crowd for a rooftop camping situation on the top of like this Jeep or Toyota. The Toyota Tacoma now has a add-on. There's a lot of the trucks you can do it with. And the reason that you would rooftop camp versus camping on the ground is for 2 things. Number 1, if it rains, you're not going to get flooded.
That's right.
You're up on top of the car. Number 2, if you're somewhere like in one of the national parks out west where there's wildlife, say bears or raccoons or whatever, they're not going to get into your tent. They can get in, but it's a lot less likely, right? You're not an easy target.
That's right. I mean, you would be alerted probably fairly quickly if something was trying to get there.
You're up on top of a vehicle.
You're up on top and you're going to hear it. And
yep.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got sort of that as a nice... And then just when you think about sort of the real estate that it takes to set up a tent, if you're putting it on the ground, you've got to lay down a pad usually, and you've got to anchor it.
Yep.
Put it on top of the truck. It's on a solid surface.
Yep.
It's not going anywhere.
That's
If
it.
you set it up the way they're meant to be set up, you're set.
Yeah,
right?
there's usually some of the mounts, you've got like a gap between it and the actual roof surface for a couple of reasons. One is that you're not damaging the roof, but also so that if it does rain, the water is not going to be affecting you. Simply put.
If you need to get in the car or you need to get in the pickup bed, you never have to touch the ground to do it.
That's exactly right.
And you got your stuff right down there, and you just reach down and grab it out of the truck, right?
That's it. It's easy.
So that's group A. The second group would be if you like to be gone for longer periods of time, or you like to travel further distances. So if you live somewhere in Iowa or Missouri or Indiana and you want to go to Colorado or Utah or Arizona, well, that's a 2 or 3 day drive.
Yeah.
Well, now how are you going to... Okay, so if you're going to the Grand Canyon, you got to stay somewhere on the way. Are you going to stay in your RV? And you don't want to be setting up a tent every night and tearing down a tent every night. That's a lot of work. So now you start looking into an actual RV, right? So either something that you tow or that you drive.
That's right.
All right. And that is a separate conversation that I'm going to get into later, but you're basically talking about an RV at that point, right? If you want to go further or stay gone longer.
Right. And they come in various sizes. I mean,
they come in various sizes, and some of them are more adept at handling colder environments, so you can actually use it all year round if you want. We do a lot of that, and so you have that crowd now. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the motorhome or van in the Volkswagen category, the drivables versus the towables. Okay.
Right.
Here I'm going to lay out the basic pros and cons for you of each. All right. But I want to say this, and I want to say I will stand behind this for the majority of you. Your first camping purchase, whether that's a tent or a rooftop camper or a towable or a drivable, it is the odds are that whatever you buy, you will change in a couple years.
That's right.
You will have the experience. Within the first couple of years, you'll start looking at what you got, and you'll have some sort of realization that, if I would have gotten this, I could go now, I could do something, and you're going to make a change. So I would almost say be careful about spending too much on your first purchase, because just expect that within a couple of years, you're going to make a change.
That's right. And, we had talked about that before the podcast. It's something that I wanted to mention to people, and this applies to, I'm a Harley rider, and I want a new one. What I have is an old Ironhead, an old 82 model Ironhead, 1000cc Ironhead. And but if you go price a brand new one and say I want to get into a wide glide or something, you're probably looking at a brand new sticker price of somewhere in the neighborhood of around $22,000 to $28,000.
There are cars that cost half that.
Exactly. So what you should be doing, which is what the point that Keith is trying to make, is be careful on your first purchase, because you can actually find some really quality, great deals on these RVs that are just a couple of years old, maybe that might have had 3 or 4 trips on them.
Oh, we're gonna get into that.
Yeah,
that's a near and dear to my heart.
Right.
That's
so
a topic
I'll let you speak on that, but that's the point I wanted to try to make, is that and that's speaking to what you're speaking of now, which is be careful.
So we're going to talk about the new versus used thing here in a minute.
Yeah.
But so let's go back to the drivables versus the towables for a minute, okay? So here are the pros and cons. So in a towable, typically, first of all, you've got to think about, do you have what it takes to tow that? So in most cases, you're gonna bare minimum, you got to start with something that's got a V6 in it, usually. Okay. There are a couple of exceptions where if it's a small pop-up, the fold-down campers, you can pull it with a 4-cylinder, but the chassis got to be rated. So do you have an automobile in your driveway that is capable of that, right? So if not, you got to work through that, right?
Right.
So and the stuff now, like a lot of it you can tow with a small pickup or a minivan. If some of them,
these SUVs, my Tucson, I own a Hyundai Tucson, and it'll pull a small retro teardrop style version of a little camper that sleeps two. That's all you need.
Yep. So you got to think about that. So here is so in general, you're always going to be towing something regardless of what you buy.
Yep.
Possibly with the exception of like a Volkswagen camper van.
Right.
But you're either going to be towing what they call a tow vehicle, which you've seen motorhomes going down the highway. We've all seen this where they've got a kind of small car in tow. A lot of them tow Jeeps, and that's their because when you set up camp, that's you don't want to have to unhook everything to go drive to the grocery store,
exactly,
or to drive around in the Grand Canyon, right,
exactly,
and hike some trails. So you're going to tow, or you're going to have your pickup truck towing. In most cases, a pickup truck towing some sort of a towable camper, right?
Right.
So the trade-offs there become how frequently you have to stop. And here's what I mean by that. So I grew up in towables. Like until about a year ago, everything we'd ever owned was a towable. From a pop-up all the way up to, the 30-foot, and they make fifth wheels that they're insane. Some of them are 42 feet long.
Right.
Those are usually less expensive than a Class A or a Class C motorhome because they don't have an engine in them.
Right.
But if you have to use the restroom or you're hungry, you have to stop. You have to pull that truck off somewhere and find a restroom or go back into your camper and use it.
Right.
If you're in a motorhome and one of your family members has to use the restroom, you don't have to stop. And ultimately for us, that's why we got into a motorhome.
Yeah.
Because I got tired of stopping every hour.
Right.
It takes forever to get where you're trying to go, right? Especially if you're trying to go further away.
Yeah.
If you're hungry, there's a fridge right there. You want to watch TV? Great. Go turn it on and back, right?
That's it.
No problem. I'm not stopping. I got 80 gallons. We're stopping when it runs out.
That's it. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you take your pets with you?
Yeah.
There you go. That's why a motorhome.
And you can do that in a towable, too. They just ride in the truck with you.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, it's nice for the animal itself, the pet, to be able to kind of walk around. And I've got an uncle who has a motorhome, and he has a couple of cats.
Yeah.
And that cat, one of his cats will ride on the dash.
Yeah.
He's got one. It just sits there and
it's
loves.
It's a house.
Yeah, it's a house to him. And he loves it, and he'll get up on behind him. He's got a little shelf up behind him. In the driver's compartment and stuff that he sits on. So, yeah, there's a lot of advantages to that.
So cost being the other major factor, other than sort of towing versus driving.
Yeah.
And again, remember, you're always going to be towing something, whether it's a car or a trailer, right? Okay. In most cases. The other kind of major factor, I don't know that it's major, but it's significant, I think, is we travel all seasons of the year. It is kind of nice when you get where you're going to have that rig already at temperature. So here's what I mean by that, right? So in the summertime, in years past, with a towable RV, we would pull out to somewhere in Utah, in the desert, in the high desert, and it's 95 degrees outside. That camper is probably in the back at least 95 degrees, okay? No airflow, you're locked down, going down the highway, closed up. So you got to turn the air conditioning on, and now it's got to run for an hour or two to get to temp. Or if it's in the cooler months, you got to turn the furnace on and let it run. If you're in a motorhome, you can do that going down the road. So you get there, it's already 75 degrees in there.
Right.
You're not sitting in there for the first hour sweating your butt off waiting for it to get to temp, okay?
Right.
So that is kind of just something to think about. Now, a lot of these towables do have generators in them now. So, they will run the air conditioner without shore power, without plugging into a pole somewhere. If you need that, that's worth thinking about. If you're going to buy anything other than a tent, there are 3 areas that you need to check, 3 major areas that you need to check before you buy.
And what are those areas, Keith?
And this is regardless of whether it's a towable or drivable or in any combination. Even pop-ups have these requirements, okay?
Yeah.
You want to check the roof. That's the big one. And anytime that you trade a unit in, the first thing those guys will do is send somebody up on the roof to look. You're looking for leaks. You're looking for damage to the roof that could cause leaks, because that is probably the most expensive thing in an RV to have to repair.
Right. And roof. Anything mounted to the roof, like AC units or
anything
satellites,
that can cause moisture damage, water damage.
Remember one thing, folks, water, it will find a way.
Yeah.
So
a lot of these have a membrane on the roof, right? So it's like a rubber stretched, and you can tell if it's ripped or if there's a gash somewhere, and you're looking for that. Always check the roof. Climb up on the roof and look yourself. Number 2 is the chassis and the tires, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a drivable, it doesn't matter if it's a towable, it's still sitting on some sort of chassis.
That's it.
I have had brand new towables that I have purchased with 2 axles on them, and they actually welded one of the axles slightly crooked.
Yep.
And, well, how do you spot that? Look at the wear pattern on the tires. Go look at the tires.
That's
the tires will tell you everything. If you see that the outside of that tire is bald, but the rest of it's fine, and it's only one tire, something's wrong with that chassis. Something's wrong with how those axles are positioned.
That's an alignment issue with the chassis to the axle, and that needs to be handled. Now, the other thing, speaking of tires, though, we might recommend when you're looking at those tires, if you're purchasing something, some of the things, not just the wear aspect of it. Remember, a lot of times these things will sit for a whole season, winter season, before you get it out in the summer. And, tires specifically on RVs, motorhomes, camper trailers, depending on the type of tire, and bias tires are used a lot. And those types of tires are actually a little bit more susceptible to the dry rotting and the cracking in the sidewall. So you want to look for those signs. Look for the cracking and the rating of the tire. We really need to do a podcast on tire ratings and that sort of stuff, and we'll do that too.
How and where they are stored also is a factor on those tires.
Absolutely.
So, whether it's a motorhome or whether it's a towable. Now, the motorhomes, they tend to not take as many risks on cost cutting with the tires because it's a bigger lawsuit for them if there's a blowout. On the towables, it is a very, very common practice for these manufacturers to put the cheapest tires they can find on them. And guys, RV owners refer to these as China bombs because it's a time bomb, and those tires usually come out of China. So look at the tires. If it's a brand you don't recognize, just know that the odds are you're going to have to replace those tires in a year.
Yeah, do your research on them. It's
belting coming loose. I mean, they're just made as cheaply as they can. All right. The third area to check, after you check the chassis, crawl around, look underneath. You're looking for any leaks. You're looking for tire wear. You're looking for major rust underneath. You're looking for anything hanging down that looks like it shouldn't be hanging down. Those are your main things to check. And then your third area is your electrical. And if it has a generator, the generator. Start the generator up, let it run, see how long it takes to start it. Let it run, turn the air conditioners on the generator. Turn on every single switch and power operated device that you can as far as electrical goes, because electrical is another area that manufacturers get very sloppy with frequently. I have had no less than about 30 electrical problems on a rig that's not even a year old.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Wired wrong, missing wires, switches not working.
Well, let's bring up why that is actually a prevalent issue. The wiring.
Do you want the polite explanation, or do you want the explanation that the service center gave me when I took it in?
You got me on the edge of my seat. I want to hear what the explanation was from the service center.
That most of these things are made in northern Indiana. They are made by the best crackheads they could find in northern Indiana.
Is that what they told you?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, man.
Well, it's no secret that they're built there because labor is cheap.
Okay.
And a lot of these guys, and I will tell you that in my case, my electrical looks like it was done by a 10-year-old.
Yeah. Now I get that there's a lack of quality control that goes into it.
It looked to me like, in fact, here's what I think happened. I think his dad was the electrical guy.
Yeah.
His dad called in sick, but didn't want to call in sick, so he just sent his 10-year-old son in to do the work for the day. Right? Put his hat on, put his stick-on mustache, just went in and ran the electric.
Got to keep production rolling, man. You know, that's stopping production is loss of revenue, man. But no, where I'm going with that is that what people need to understand is that RVs, motorhomes, they're typically built on chassis that are they're already in production for other usages. So what they have to do with these things is they convert them. And through the conversion process, people, that is where the mistakes are made. That is where the oversights are made.
When they're just sloppy or they're just in a hurry.
That's it.
And
they're running a electrical wire and they run a screw through it and it grounds out.
Yep.
You know, that's it.
And let me just elaborate on that just a bit longer here. Okay, so if you think about the warranty process of an automobile, cars today that we're buying new on the road, they're kind of bulletproof. I mean, I can remember back when my folks bought new cars when I was a kid, and they would have way more problems with them over the course of the first couple years than I think we have now with a new car you drive off the lot.
Right on.
That is not true of RVs. If you have that expectation going in, you are sadly mistaken. You are going to be in for a big surprise.
That's right.
There's just going to be a lot that goes wrong with them.
Yeah, they are mandated differently.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I mean, if it's a
they'll
vehicle,
put a warranty on them,
right?
But you just expect that you're going to have to take them up on that warranty. You would be in the rare minority not to.
That's it, and that's just like, and we'll get into this into another podcast upcoming at some time. That's with any conversion, you're going to have issues like that. Like there's a lot of LPG conversions, compressed natural gas conversions, vehicles that are out there. You got to understand that what's happening is your big auto manufacturers are manufacturing the production vehicle that runs on gasoline. Then they send these things off to an authorized conversion center that converts these things, and then they rely on those conversion centers to do the right thing. It then becomes an issue, and we'll get into the pros and cons of LPG, CNG type applications. I have a lot of high level knowledge on that, and we'll be glad to have a podcast on that. So you need to put that on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Let's go back into this just before we get into the new versus used thing.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about this Volkswagen camper. So here's something to think about if you're going to look at a drivable. Okay. So the towable situation, usually you're going to be the length, at least twice the length of the tow vehicle. Meaning, if you've got a Chevy Silverado pickup truck, whatever you're towing, you're going to probably be about twice as long as you would be if you just had the truck, at least.
Yeah.
Okay? So you got to think about parking. So if you got to stop at McDonald's, you got to make sure you can get into the McDonald's. You got to make sure you can navigate the parking lot and you can find a place to park. If you buy a motorhome, you can, some of these, like the Volkswagen van, are designed to fit in a standard parking spot. If you, let's say, are going to the Grand Canyon and you live in Iowa and it's a 3-day drive, you can take that thing and you can literally park it, as long as it's allowed, on the street overnight somewhere in a town and sleep in it, and nobody's none the wiser that you're even in it, right? It's just a car parked in a parking spot.
Right.
If I do that in my 40-foot Class A, you're going to know I'm there, and you're going to know I'm sleeping in it, because it's pretty freaking obvious that there's somebody with a house on wheels parked, taking up 4 parking spots, right?
Right.
So you got to sort of think about that, right? Now, if you got a lot of kids, I understand it's tight space, but if you're retired or the kids are grown up and they've moved out, or there's just one of you or 2 of you or 3 of you, whatever, you can pull something like that off in a drivable and still have it take the footprint of a regular automobile.
Right.
Food for thought, right?
That's a good
overnighting, overnighting, which is what they call it if you're staying in like a Walmart parking lot or on the street somewhere. People do that all the time, right? I mean, I'm going to the Grand Canyon. I've got to stop at Walmart along the way to buy toilet paper anyway. Let's just park in their lot, right?
Yep.
And Walmart typically is okay with that. So
yeah. You know, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get run off unless it's just a very small
I mean,
parking lot.
the best thing to do is just to go ask first, and then you're covered, right?
And they'll say okay, typically. Yeah.
Yep. So, so new versus used. So the sweet spot in my experience is from 2 to 5 years old used.
Yep.
And here is why if I had to pick a number, so number of different RVs that either I have owned or my family has owned as I was growing up would be somewhere between 15 and 20 different models throughout the years, okay? Excluding tents.
Right.
My current rig, which is a 2018 model year, I bought it, I had to buy it new. I didn't have a choice because there were some changes in the model line that I didn't care for, and they're hard to find, and I had to bite the bullet and buy a new one, okay? I have owned that vehicle less than 360 days. It has spent over 200 days in service.
Yes, it has, and I know that it has because I've tried to assist you in some of those issues.
The guy at the service shop, when I took it out the last time, and it's got to go back again, commented to me that this was his joke to me. He said, "I've owned it more than you have."
Now, this is the one that was produced up in Indiana by the crackheads?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, they're all made in, most of them are made in either Iowa or northern Indiana, right? So when you buy new, the quality control is not there. I don't care who makes it, okay? It's not going to be there like it is on a car.
That's right.
It could be $1 million coach. Mine right now, and the only reason I'm saying this is so that I can dismantle any expectation that price equals quality.
Yes.
This thing is a 39-foot Class A. It costs more than my first house. I have had that I can count, that I know of, 50 unique problems ranging from electrical to generator exhaust lines not being hooked up.
The fridge.
The fridge had to have the fridge guy come service it. The defrost cycles didn't work. And carbon monoxide detector, the polarity was wired backwards. I mean, it's just on and on and on and on, right? So price does not equal quality, okay? Nope. If you buy new, they call this shakedown. You're going to drive it. You're going to have things shake loose. It's going to be put together in many ways that the attention to detail wasn't there. If you buy one that's a year or two old, and I've done this many times, most of those problems have already been addressed and repaired under warranty, but you are not buying something that's so old that the aging process has caught up to it.
Right.
So the shakedown has already happened.
Right.
You can stabilize these things. You can get them to a point realistically where you don't take them out every time and something goes wrong. But you've got to sort of fight to get there. You've got to spend that 200 days in the shop just constantly just hacking away at little problems until you get them all taken care of. Right? So if you can do it, the sweet spot is a year or two up to about 5 years, right? Right. Because you're still going to get kind of all the modern amenities. You know, they don't really change that frequently. Yeah.
And honestly, look at the mileage on it. I mean, when you go to buy one, and let somebody else take the hit on the depreciation of the value.
Not to mention that if you buy them new, there's a huge depreciation hit when you drive it off. Huge depreciation hit when you drive it off the lot.
Yeah, when it comes to RVs, that's one of those that you take a major hit once you drive it off the lot. And that was what I was bringing up about the Harley Davidson thing. About the motorcycles. I mean, you can go buy a really, really good motorcycle, and not just a Harley, but any manufacturer out there for that matter. You can find a great deal on something that may have only been owned by another person for a couple of years, and you get to talking to that person if they're available, or you get the records on it, and you realize, gosh, these people only drove this thing 4 times in 2 years. That is a pot of gold.
There.
That's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, man.
As long as you don't need it next weekend.
Yep.
The more patient you can afford to be, the better off. And spring is the absolute worst time to buy them because that's when everybody's looking for them.
That's it.
Wait until the end of the camping season and start your look in the summertime with the sort of expecting to buy from there toward fall, right?
Yep, that's
toward
it,
autumn.
man. You're absolutely right. Yeah, pay attention to that. Yes.
So one last thing to think about here is, depending on what you buy and the size of it, take that into consideration before you settle on a model, right? Where are you going to park it, or where are you going to store it? If you live in a neighborhood, make sure that if there are covenants in your neighborhood, you got to check all those rules out to see if you're allowed to park it. If you can't, measure the driveway to make sure it'll fit, trees, mailboxes, all that stuff. If you can't park it where you live, now you've got to think about the added expense of storage, which is going to add to the cost of whatever you're buying, right? So, and that can range depending on where you live in the country or the world, anywhere from, $50 a month to $300 a month.
Right.
I can tell you that a good place to look for parking is the self-storage facilities, because they usually have parking spaces too.
Yeah, you bring, that's a great point to bring up. I actually am very fortunate that you know where I'm at. Most of our listeners have figured out
Area
where I'm
51.
At. Yeah,
yep.
Area 51. I'm up in the Pacific Northwest, and it is not an uncommon sight here to have areas that are secured, fenced in. Some are covered, some are not. You have your options of whatever level of storage you want, but it is not uncommon to be able to find RV storage lots somewhere. So if you don't have a spot for it at your house, don't let that limit you. Go look and seek out the local storage unit. They're out there. Trust me.
Just know what size, just know what you're going to need. And sometimes you got to get on a waiting list to get to one that, especially if you want one really close to where you live.
Yeah.
Go ahead and get on the waiting list, man. But
I think
about that.
Yeah, I think what you said, Keith. I think the number one thing that I pulled from this really is to do your homework and be patient when you go out and go to purchase it. Like you said, you hit on this. If you don't need it today, or tomorrow to go out on a trip, that's fantastic. You're in a great position to be patient, to do your homework.
Rent one. If you do. Rent one.
And you know what? Go down to if you've got like a local, if you live in an area that has RV, campgrounds that take the big rigs, or the rigs like you're looking into buying. If it's open to the public and you're allowed to kind of walk through the park and if you see a model you like, you think it looks cool, I bet you that person is sitting outside, probably relaxing in front of a fire or whatever. Have a conversation with them.
I've actually done that with my son. We have walked the campground because my sister was in the market not too long ago, and we just asked people. They were all models that my sister was interested in, and that first of all, these people are sitting out on their under their awnings, drinking a beer, taking it easy. That's all they want to do is hang out and talk, right? I mean, they'll talk to you for hours.
I'll be honest with you, man. I told you this in the beginning. I've never owned an RV myself. I mean, I've camped in tents. I have a tent. I mean, that's what we do. But we've been very fortunate that we have relatives that have fifth wheel type trailers and pull behinds of some sort. Toy haulers, and some of them, which we call there's all kinds. Again, you might be a person that likes to ride dirt bikes or quads or whatever. They have those toy haulers where the back end goes down, and you can drive up into the back, and
you can put golf carts in the back.
Absolutely.
Yep. I've got a video of somebody actually putting a smart car in the back of mine. Apparently, it'll fit.
Yeah,
I mean, those, like, who makes the smart car, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right?
that's the name of it. I don't know the actual.
I think Mercedes owns them.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a group. Put it that way. Mercedes is like the big shareholder in it, and Smart's been actually a really good car. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You can buy a good. Some people will actually go and buy a very small economy car that is used specifically
the most
reason.
Common two vehicles that you see towed behind motorhomes. Mm-hmm. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
The Jeep, we already talked about. Some type of Jeep, whether it's the Wrangler, Jeeps, for whatever reason, they're just, because a lot of these guys, I think they're out west and they're off-roading. And the other one, do you want to guess? Take it. You want me? I'll give you a couple clues. You want?
Give me one clue.
So you got to think light.
Okay.
Reliable.
Okay.
Inexpensive.
Light, reliable, inexpensive. Light, reliable. Well, it's not going to be a Tesla. A Pinto? A Chevette?
Not exploding. No.
Oh.
Honda CRVs.
Honda CRVs.
Usually like a small Honda. CRV tends to be the popular one because it's got that extra kind of storage hatch in the back. You can cram a couple extra
Yeah, I could
CRVs.
see
a lot of CRVs.
I could see a Honda Element being one too as well, maybe. But,
Lightweight, so towing.
Yeah. A lot of people just bring bicycles with them, but that's the ones that, they're not.
Yeah, but you got to think about going to the grocery store.
They're not traveling anywhere outside of the campground.
I don't want to be hauling a gallon of milk in my backpack for 5 miles.
Well, the advantage of towing one behind, like you said, I mean, you go to a national park, but there may be sites that you want to see that are 50 miles away from that national park. You've got a base
some of these national parks are huge. You got to drive through them.
Yeah.
And if they're, like up in the Rockies, you can't drive a motorhome through some of those passes. So, you got to have a small vehicle.
Yeah, that's right. So, and I think at some point down the road, in not in the very near future, but in our future this year, we may be doing a live podcast together, in person together, and doing this thing at a campsite. Yeah?
Yeah, we could do that. Now, I've got one last... This is last but definitely not least. And this might surprise you, Jay.
Okay.
This is important, and you need to have this factored in before you buy anything. Mm-hmm. I don't care what it is or who makes it.
Right.
This needs to be in your list of criteria is service.
Yes.
Now, this audience, our audience, you can do a lot of the work yourself. In fact, if you're not sure and you drop us a note, go to partscounterguru.com and hit on the Ask Us a Question tab, and you can drop us a note, and I'll be glad to field your questions on, if you got some kind of service question on an RV, I'll be glad to jump in there, right? Or Jay might too.
Yeah.
But you need to have a plan for service. Now, here's why, and this is the part I think I might surprise you on. If I go buy a Ford Escape, and I live in Nashville, and let's say I move halfway across country to Oregon. Okay. How do I get that car? If it's under warranty, warranty doesn't even matter. Warranty or not, but let's just say warranty for the sake of the argument here, right?
Right.
Do I have to drive all the way back to where I bought the car in Nashville to get it serviced or take the car back?
The answer is no.
Okay, because
there are service centers and Ford dealerships all over the country.
Any Ford authorized service center, if it's
That's
under
right.
warranty, will service. Okay.
That is correct.
If I buy a brand new Winnebago and it's under warranty from a dealership in Nashville,
you got to go to Nashville.
And I drive to Oregon to a authorized Winnebago dealership, and I've got a warranty repair, that I can literally call that dealership up and they can go, we're not going to service it for you. You didn't buy it here.
That's right. Yep.
They can do that.
I actually am not surprised by that. I knew that. Just from not my personal experience, but my personal experience of someone who had that personal experience. And now they were out of state and they were kind of stuck, and they ended up having to pay the money.
Yeah. Now, not all places play that way. Some of them will. Some of them will say, I'll put you on the list, but I got to put the people that bought from us above you, so it might be a couple months. But this is why I'm saying you need to have the answers to those questions before you buy, because the worst thing in the world that could happen is you buy that thing in Tampa and you live in Nashville and you don't have a plan for who's going to service it. You're in trouble, man. Now you're driving it all the way back to Tampa.
Yeah, and your best resource for that is to contact where you purchased it, your service center, your Winnebago dealer that you deal with. Talk to them and say, hey, I'm going on a long trip. I'm going out to Texas.
I'm going to do you one better.
Yep, go ahead.
You need to reach out to, they usually have customer, what do they call it? Customer relations or a customer support line. So in other words, if you own I'm just going to use, I have owned a Winnebago in the past. My current one is not a Winnebago, but Winnebago, I know for a fact, has a customer service line. All of them do. Forest River.
Sure.
All of them.
Right.
Call that number get a list of certified authorized service center. If you're going to buy a Forest River, call Forest River, get a list of authorized service centers near you, wherever you're going to be. Okay,
that's right. Yeah,
call them up and make sure they will agree to work on it.
Yep.
Just having the list doesn't mean that they're going to agree to work on it. You got to call these people up and go, I didn't buy it from you. Are you still okay with working on it?
That's exactly right. And it works in, that's a great point. And I'll bring another similar circumstance. That's like, or try to give you a comparison here. Everybody in this industry is very aware of a engine rebuilder, remanufacturer named Jasper Engines.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Jasper Engines, they warranty labor, the engine itself, a lot of things, but they will only warranty it at their authorized Jasper engine installer facilities. Jasper doesn't own the facility. They just authorize the facility to install the engine and service their customers. So there will be a database of people who can help you out just the same way with like Jasper Engines. So just do your homework before you get on the trip. Bottom line is, if you're plotting your trip out, just check it all out before you do that. So, and then make sure, hey, I want to throw this in. I'm not an avid RVer like you. I do camp from time to time, but I can tell you this. Coolers, keeping your food cool, right? That's pretty important. I have found that probably one of the best coolers, and I may be wrong, but I know that what I've used, the Yeti brand is the way to go, pal. Just saying.
So, right. So, again, how long are you going to be gone? How much food do you need to take with you? How close are you going to be to a grocery store? Some of these rigs have refrigeration systems and freezers that will run on multiple fuel sources. They'll run on propane. They'll run on DC power from your car if it's plugged in, while you're going down the road to the trailer connector.
Yeah.
Or they'll run on AC power at the pole, right, which you're at your campsite.
Right.
But you got to think that through. How much food are you going to want to travel with? If it doesn't have a good fridge in it, then you supplemental cooler. You can put it in the back of your tow vehicle, or you can put it in the back of your truck if you have a towable. You're set. We used to do that all the time, man.
Yeah.
It's,
I think we should put a link up on our website on the mentioned on the podcast about the Yeti cooler, by the way.
Okay.
That way people can go in and research it and go buy one if they want.
Well, yeah, I've got several, and I can tell you.
I think we ought to.
The ones I like, you like, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put some stuff out there, guys. It'll be mentioned on the podcast, so check it out. Yeah?
Okay. It's a good idea.
Make sure you have when you're going out, and I don't care how old you are, we all like marshmallows and stuff like that around a campfire. So make sure you have that.
All right. So looking at this hat that you're wearing, I'm going to leave with this because this is probably the last. So let's just real quick here.
Okay.
So if you haven't seen Christmas Vacation, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? That's
true.
So there's a famous scene in there where Cousin Eddie's out in the street and he's dumping his sewer tank into the. Okay.
Yeah.
So RVs typically, if it has a shower and it has a bathroom, a potty, they have two holding tanks.
Right.
They have what's called a black water tank or a black tank, and that's straight sewage. That's your toilet, okay?
Right.
And they have a gray water tank. It's called a gray water tank, and that's your dish soap, your shower water,
right.
Your sink and shower, okay? Know before you buy what you need. So, if your wife's like, look, I'm not buying anything that doesn't have a shower in it and a bathroom, like a potty. You got to know that. You got to plan for that. Now, these things have holding tanks in them.
Yep.
And you can go, depending on the number of family members that you have, you can go 3 or 4 days without having to empty those tanks, right? And you can use it, and you can shower, and you can use the bathroom, and you can put water in the holding tank, fresh water. And then every 3 or 4 days, you got to go somewhere that has a dump site, right?
Yeah.
And you can fill up. So the thing, if you own an RV, sort of the Cousin Eddie scene is it really is kind of the it's just something you would never do, right? Is just emptying it right there on the street. But but you do have to sort of plan on that. You have to go, well, where am I going, and what kind of hookups are they going to have, and what do I need? Do I need that or not? It's going to add to the cost if I need a shower. You get showers in pop-ups now, like it's but you just gotta.
But then too, that there are a lot of national parks and state parks that actually have, on-site showers.
Yeah,
just
check it.
Just check it all out. They're there. They'll even tell you what type of hookups they have. Power. Whether you need a what is the amperage rating? A 32 amp or
you go. Usually it's 30 or 50.
30 or 50. There you go.
You gotta depending on the rig you've got. Usually it has to do with how many air conditioners are on the rig. You'll
do
need
your homework.
30 or 50. You have not lived life until you have had to use what's called a vault toilet. Those are usually in national parks. It's one of the most disgusting experiences I've ever had in terms of a bathroom, but it will put things in perspective for you.
Ooh. And on that note,
yeah, right. So do you want to do the take everybody through our sites?
Yeah. So look, man, we're doing this because we love to do it, and we want to continue to do this. And we need your support. And the best way to support us, man, is to really subscribe to our podcast. You can do that going to the YouTube, our YouTube channel. You can go to our website, which is www.partscounterguru.com. On that website, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a drop-down menu that has a lot of things, which is links to our podcasts. Follow that. We're on Stitcher. We're on iTunes, Apple Podcast. We're on Google. We're on Google. What do we call it?
Google Podcast.
Google Podcast. Yeah, They keep changing the name on it. We're obviously on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, which there you're going to find our podcast along with some other helpful videos that we've done. You can become a sponsor. We have a sponsor tab up there. We need your support. That helps us keep doing this. You can become a fan. You can contact us. You can mention things to us that you'd like to see on the podcast. I like to wear hats, as I've said before. If you want to see me wear a hat that you want to see on a podcast, contact us there. Send us a hat. I promise you I'll wear it. It has to be in good taste, though. So there we go. Outside of that, you can reach us on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook. And that's on Facebook, we are Parts Counter Gurus. On Instagram, we are the Parts Counter Gurus. And yeah, that's about it, man. Yeah? You like that? And hey, don't forget, don't get too attached to this, because it's leaving with me when I leave here in 2 weeks. All
right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
my friend.
how about this? How about I just think I feel like this is the way we end this show. You can park it at home, but home is always where you park it.
Awesome. Yes.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Later.
Leave the cars to us.